Today, I'm here with Taylor Church. He has an incredible podcast, and he also lives really close, which I didn't realize this entire time we've been messaging. And we actually were talking a lot about life, and it's so fascinating, a lot of the similarities. He's from Arizona originally, and I'm from Arizona as well. And he just has a lot of life experience that we've messaged about, and I've watched your podcast, which I think is really cool because let me just say one thing that I really like. Sorry, this is sounding really ADD right off the bat. That's okay. One thing that I've loved is that most men won't openly talk about vulnerable things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you're really good at.
Oh, thank you.
Why is that?
I'm not interested in talking about anything else. That's why.
You don't want to talk about the surface, shallow stuff?
No, everything else kind of.
Did you want to talk about Lululemon on this?
We can, but let's see. I only own maybe one product, but yeah, I ultimately, the other stuff tends to bore me. And so to me, if someone's not being vulnerable, like we can still have fun and be silly and have a good time. I have plenty of close friends that don't really get very vulnerable with me, but the ones that do, I don't know, I can instantly connect with a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And it's just more of a fulfilling relationship for me. So
totally.
I come into your beautiful home and we could just talk about your decor and your lovely blue jumpsuit. But what I really want to hear is about your life, and what makes you feel things and why you do what you do and why you love your husband so much. And, these are the things that are interesting to me.
I love that. And I feel like it attracts people who are similar to that. I mean, you can pick out really quick who you're going to connect with, right? Like, I know. In fact, I remember talking about this with some girlfriends. I can tell right away the friends that I will love from a distance and the friends that we will have a connection because of the only thing and not to hate on Lululemon. Lululemon's great. It's just that if that's the main topic of our conversations or The Bachelor or something, I'm like, we don't have very much in common.
Yeah.
So it really creates some deep friendships. I know you've actually been through some really hard stuff, and I'll let you can dive into whatever you're comfortable with. This is not like we were joking before this, like, tell me the worst thing you've ever done.
I haven't done any bad things.
You don't have to do anything like
I've been only good.
That's great. You've always been perfect, I'm sure.
Yeah, pretty much.
But so the guest right before you, she and I were talking about how the whole reason I do this podcast is because I want people to feel hope. Like I want people to be able to look at a podcast and say, I've been through that. Like I know what they're talking about. And I guess if they can get through it, I can too.
Yeah.
In fact, the podcast that just aired this past week and they're still kind of doing clips on is my brother. He was a heroin addict and was able to get clean, which is unheard of. Like when I say heroin addict, he was like on the streets, heroin and meth. They call it black and whites. I learned that from the podcast. I didn't know that. And has been through a lot. But the fact that that's even possible to get through, I love being able to show that you can get past that, And I don't make anything. I don't make a dime from this podcast.
Yet.
Well, I don't know if I even want to, but I'm literally doing this as just my good contribution, or at least I'm trying to the world. So anyway, I just want you to share whatever you would feel comfortable, because I know when we were messaging, I was like, just share something that you've had to overcome that, to be able to give hope to other people.
Yeah. When you messaged me that, my initial thought was, what have I had to overcome? Just, I don't know, existence, just life in general. You know?
You don't have to have someone like huge life-changing experience.
No, I've and I don't want to paint a picture like I've had a really difficult or trying life, because I've honestly had an amazing, really blessed life. But as you get older, like life just kind of settles in and kicks you in the teeth from time to time, And as you get older, you know more people that have passed away. I've had a few really close friends commit suicide. As you get older and remain perpetually single like myself, you go through more heartache, right? And so, even in this last, I'd say 2 years, I've had two pretty pretty horrendous breakups that really tried my faith and my hope in love, my hope in the future that I want. But ultimately, I've been really grateful for the things I've gone through.
Yeah. What has it taught you, those breakups?
Too much. It's taught me things I wasn't really in the
Breakups are
business
the
of
absolute
learning.
worst. I know. I'm sorry.
No,
Let's dive in. What's her name?
no,
Just
that's
kidding.
it's taught me a lot about just what I need in a relationship instead of just what I want.
Yeah.
And kind of the difference between, I think when you're younger and you picture your like future life and spouse and family, you kind of have, I don't know, you kind of have an image in your head of what that person is like. And then you get in certain relationships and you realize, wow, this person has elements that I never even could have dreamt up before of things that I want in a person. And so my last couple of relationships, amazing women. And they just showed me some things that I'm like, oh, you can have this in a relationship. You can have this in a person. And now I'm not interested in anything less than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. And it also taught me, here's the lesson it taught me that I was not really interested in learning, but it taught me to be, when a relationship ends, especially a romantic relationship, but the same could apply for a friendship or a family member. When a relationship ends, it's really easy for your first emotion to be anger or bitterness or resentment, especially if, they ended things with you or they're the one that walked away. But I realized that I don't really have any legitimate reasons to be angry or resentful besides the fact that they chose not to be with me, right? And so I thought, okay, if I'm not going to choose resentment or anger, the only other real option is gratitude, right? Being grateful for what I did have instead of bemoaning the fact that it's over. And I think a lot of people, the way they deal with heartache is to sort of villainize the person that broke their heart, because it's easier to sleep at night thinking like, yeah, this person actually sucks. Like they did me wrong and I'm such a catch. I can't believe they didn't realize it, right? But I'm like, no, like that person just wanted something else or the timing wasn't right. But what we had was beautiful and amazing, and I'm a better person for having met this person. I'm grateful to have just been part of something for a little bit,
Gosh, I love that, because you're choosing to be grateful.
Yeah. Because the alternative is horrible, I think.
Yeah. Did that help you feel better?
Yeah. It's hard because, like I said, I think your initial emotional response is, man, to get through this, I can't be, still thinking this person is great and wonderful.
Right.
I have to move on and I have to think they're the enemy, Yeah. But I think that just puts bitterness and resentment in your heart. And I also don't think you're being self-honest. And listen, sometimes there's scenarios where the person maybe should be the enemy because they mistreated you or they were horrible,
right.
But that wasn't the case with me. Like they were amazing people that just didn't
work out.
Yeah, didn't work out. And so I just, I have a hard enough time naturally being always happy and joyful, and so I'm like, I don't have any room in my heart for resentment or bitterness. That'll put me in the grave.
Smart.
Yeah.
So can I ask something? Because this is kind of fascinating to me. I've been married now. My 13th wedding anniversary was just last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. Anyway, and I feel like I dated for so long, and so did my husband, because we got married later compared to a lot of people's standards. And but in just that 13 years, I feel like the game has totally changed.
Yeah.
What is it like dating right now? Because there's all these apps and everything.
Sure, yeah.
Is that like how people meet?
It depends. I mean, people will always meet organically, but yeah, there's a lot of options out there with apps, with social media. People meet just on Instagram
Yeah.
or whatever, and so
Do men still take women on dates?
they sure do.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I like to have my first dates be very like low key, low
Yeah.
pressure.
Right.
So like, we'll go get a treat. We'll
Yeah.
go get some ice cream or
That's
something.
smart. See if it's worth it.
Yeah, like I can't just be buying people dinner every weekend, But yeah, if I really see a connection and really am interested, then yeah, we're going on, nice dates and stuff. But yeah, I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth with dating in this era, because there's a lot of hookup culture, because there is sort of a paradox of choice, because there's so many people to meet on dating apps, and there's always somebody better and more attractive and more wealthy and whatever.
Yeah.
You can always find them. But I look at it as, yeah, there's some negatives, but I think there's more opportunity to meet people.
Yeah.
When you're busy with your career and you're out of college and you're not meeting people all the time organically, maybe you work from home. It's like, were you going to meet somebody at the post office?
Yeah.
So I like having more options. So yeah, I don't have any complaints about like dating in 2024. I just have complaints about dating in general.
But you did bring up hookup culture, and again, I'm not going to try to act like I'm some expert on it, because I've been married for a while now, and I've got 6 kids, so it's not like I'm busy with that. But it does seem, just from talking to my friends who are single, my girlfriends, that there is kind of this underlying theme of like just people hook up, like that's like, and I don't want this to come across as like judgmental or anything, but like, I wish people would know that that's not where happiness is.
Sure. Yeah. It's tough because I think most people know that. I think the hard truth is that in the moment, at least, it's still a better alternative than to just being alone that night.
Yeah.
Right. And so
don't you feel like that's like alcohol? It's like you feel better drunk, but then you sober up and you're like, crap, that was
sure, 100%. But yeah. And it's funny for me, like there are times where it's not that I'm really that interested in quote unquote the hookup, but sometimes it's just the companionship. It's just being with somebody, rather than or feeling wanted, feeling like somebody's interested in you. And to me, I would never in a million years take like a hookup over a legitimate prospect or interest. But when you don't have a legitimate prospect or interest, the hookup becomes more appealing.
Sure.
It's still, like you said, it's still ultimately a vacuous pursuit. But yeah, we're all human.
So with you being single, do you feel like, how do I ask that? Do you feel like most men would agree with you, or do you feel like they would disagree with
out loud?
Yeah, I mean, like, how do you think they really feel?
Yeah, I think most guys, it's tough because guys and girls tend to have pretty different philosophies and approaches on hookups.
Yeah.
Right? I think most guys, they might not admit it to you, but I think most guys, even if they're like, yeah, I don't want to be in the hookup culture, I don't want to be doing that frivolously, but if it falls on my
itself.
if it falls on my lap, like who am I? My hands are tied a little bit, and so, and whereas I think women sometimes that's not their pursuit, but they'll easily fall for a guy that's all the guy wants.
Yeah.
And the girl,
because they think that it represents more than it actually does.
Yeah, or they think it can evolve from there. Which it can on rare occasions, I think. But for me, when girls are asking me for dating advice and they're telling me their stories and stuff, I feel like I can pinpoint with pretty good accuracy. That guy's not interested. That guy's not interested. That guy's
Yeah.
not interested. You know.
I wonder if every girl should read that book. He's just not that into you. We're really like going down a rabbit hole here, but
I just mean like, and this is a harsh reality, but I think if you really, really are having a hard time figuring out if someone is into you, they're probably not.
yeah.
You know?
Yeah, if he's not calling,
And
then
it's
he's not.
hard because in those initial stages, the first couple weeks, like,
gotta play hard to get.
well, yeah, and you're trying to figure out your own feelings, and you're trying to play it cool and not come on too strong. But like for me, when the right girl is around and I'm super interested, like, she should have no doubt in her
Right.
mind. If anything, she might have an ounce of doubt because I'm trying to
Let it all out.
I'm trying to be cool. I'm trying to not tell her I love her immediately, you know. But yeah, there should be no question.
So I have this opinion on this that's it's so stupid that this is even controversial, but it is.
Yeah.
So my dad was so good at teaching us this philosophy, like this whole thing we're talking about, and he always taught us like, make the men work for it, make them work for it. Like, I know that nowadays, I mean, I don't know, I can't say I know because I'm not out dating, but it seems like from these stupid TikTok clips and everything that I see that you hear a lot of women being like, oh, I think it should be 50-50 and women should pay 50%. And I don't agree with that.
Sure.
And it's not from a gold digger standpoint. It's just not. Like, my dad taught us, and it worked. Make men pursue you. Men are hunters by nature.
Yeah.
They respect what they have to work for. I'm not saying play games,
Right.
but don't be so available and needy. In fact, I was telling even one of my really good friends recently, she was bawling her eyes out about a guy she's only been out with a certain number of times. And I was like, well, okay, walk me through this scenario. And she's like, well, he took me out and I could tell he really liked me. And then we kissed and I was like, first date, oof, that's your first problem. Okay, go on.
Yeah.
And then she's like, and then I texted him the next night. He didn't respond. So I texted him the next night and I was like, hey, do you want to like get together tonight? I was like, okay, stop the story. I could hardly even listen.
She's dead in the water.
Let me tell you right now, first of all, that one's gone. Just don't work on that one anymore.
Yeah.
The next time, if you're interested in a guy, you make him come to you. And men should do that. Be men. Like, stand up and be men. You know what I mean? Like, go ask a girl out and don't just sit there and like text, hey, you want to hang out? No. Ask her out. Like, show some respect, and then make him be the one that contacts you, at least for the first little bit, until there's an established like rapport or relationship, I know that not everyone's going to agree with that.
Yeah.
But I will say it worked for me every time. And I'm not trying to like say, oh, I'm just became this dating genius. I'm not saying that. But there's traditional values for a reason, and this is the biggest thing. And you can tell me if you agree with this.
Yeah.
This is going to be so offensive. I don't even care.
Oh, it's not.
But like, not to you, but it might be to other people. But if you have self-respect and you have respect for God and your morals are first, I'm saying this from a girl perspective, but it should be for both, but I can only speak as a female. And you say, I won't do this or this or this. I have those standards, and those standards don't change depending on who it is.
Yeah.
That guy will respect you so much more.
Yeah.
He will respect you because he knows that he can't even talk you into anything. And a guy wants to be with a girl. Well, he wants long-term to be with a girl he respects. He doesn't want to be with someone easy.
Right.
No matter what people say. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. It's confusing because, men are such, we're such visual creatures and such physical creatures. And so the problem is, like I said, like with the hookup culture, most guys have what they want and then what they do. Yeah. And they're not always the same thing, right? Yeah. So a lot of guys will just kind of lazily, hey, you want to hang out? Or, hey, like, oh, this girl isn't doing X, Y, or Z, so I'm out. But I mean, that's that's an easy filter to be like, hey, that guy's
totally. You just eliminated someone you don't want to be with anyway.
yeah. And you know, if you both want to be casual and just have fun or whatever, that's fine. That's your own business. But for the most part, like, I don't know. I think, yeah, if a guy needs to act like that, he probably, yeah, just doesn't really care about you.
Yeah, and you don't want to be with someone like that, guy
Yeah.
or girl,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing if, like, you know, if a man has money
Mm-hmm.
and a woman acts a certain way. And so a lot of people that know my husband know that he did really well financially. Like when we were first dating, we dated a long time. And by the end of it, had lost everything. And that's when I married him.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful it happened that way. Like I just married him knowing like, this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And I don't care if it bounces back or not. And it may never. This was like really, really low situation financially. And what a blessing to have that establishment so we could just build things up together. And I just wish some of my friends that I see out there single could know, like, just focus on the things that have actual substance.
Yeah. You know, okay, this is now talk about controversial. So I think a lot of girls that remain single will say after 26 or 27 or whatever, they get very concerned. Not necessarily they don't become gold diggers, but they become way more concerned with, can this guy provide for me?
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of that is because they've had to become independent themselves and they're working hard and they're ambitious. And so they're like, yeah, I need a guy at least as ambitious as me, if not more. Right? But they lose a little bit of that youthful, romantic, like,
innocence.
I'm just in it for this guy.
Yeah.
And what he's about.
Yeah.
And it's hard because I can understand if you're a 30-year-old woman, you own your own home, you have a full-time career, and the guy you're interested in makes way less money than you. I could see how that's unattractive. But I don't know. To me, it's unattractive when a girl that's like, you can tell that's like top 3 in her concerns, right? Is what you do and how much money you make.
Right.
And like I said, I get it, but like, if I meet a girl I'm really interested in and she works at McDonald's, I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Let's go to
That's
Mickey
usually
D's.
not a need of a man though, right?
It's true. It's true. It's this weird thing where like, it's pretty high on a woman's priority list and it's not even on a guy's list at all.
So let me ask you something and you have to be honest, okay?
Okay.
So if that same girl worked at McDonald's, but she was not physically attractive, she has great personality.
See ya.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly. Okay. So that brings me to my point. Okay. Have you ever read the book, His Needs, Her Needs? I highly recommend this.
Yeah.
Especially if you're married or thinking about getting married or anything like that. And the subtitle of it is How to Build an Affair-Proof Marriage. It's one of the best books I've ever read on marriage. And it goes through the 5 basic needs of men and women. Needs. Yeah. Not just desires, the actual needs. This opened my mind so much to this. It's like men will, say, oh, she's a gold digger. And women will say, he wants nothing but my body, you know? Yeah. And they're both kind of right. Right. And they're both kind of justified. But it talks about how a very, very basic need for a female. And I'm not, all these boss babes out there who are throwing up right now, I'm not talking about you, but like.
They can throw up. That's fine.
I know. I don't
Go
care,
ahead.
whatever. But one of the basic needs, generally speaking, of females is a man who can provide. Right. And so call that gold digger, call that whatever you want. That's a basic need. And this is what I also say to my friends too, when they're like, oh my gosh, he should love me no matter what, even though I put on this weight. I'm like, yeah, he should love you. But do you want him to be attracted to you? I know I know that's going to rub people the wrong way. Yeah. You know what I mean? But men, I feel like our Heavenly Father, God, I feel like he made men that way. Now, can either of those go in extreme directions? 100%. Yeah. You can start only focusing on, women in a sexual aspect and watch porn and do all the things that I think are just disgusting and insidious. Just like she can become a complete gold digger and only focus on money and be super stupid and shallow, right? But at its core, in a healthy way, it is okay and good and right and natural and normal for a female to want a man that can provide. And it is good and okay and right and natural and normal for a man to want a female to be attractive.
Yeah, these are really good points. And what I try to articulate to people is that, like you said, this is just how it is.
Yeah.
So you can be bugged that that's how guys are, or you can just accept it and get on board, and vice versa, right?
And vice versa, yeah.
Like I said, I don't love that women care so much about what I do and how much money I make, but they do. So I better get on board. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a humble way to
put it. I don't love it, but it's because, like you said, we're built differently.
Yeah.
And so to me, there's kind of this dissonance because I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair. I don't care how much money you make.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's not, you know.
But you do care what she looks like.
Of course, right?
And she might not care as much about, I mean, you're an attractive guy. I'm not saying she doesn't care about your looks.
Sure. But yeah, it's funny because I'll also hear girls say like, well, I don't care, you know, if you gained weight or whatever. And I'm like,
I care if you do.
Yeah. Okay. Like, I'm glad, like, and it's weird because I'm almost like, I don't like that they say that because I'm like, I want you to be really, I don't want you to not care if I lose the farm.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, it's, you can be bugged that men are so visual and care so much about physical attraction.
Yeah.
Or you can just sign up for the game you're playing.
Yeah.
You know,
you want it. Okay. Like that's these women that think that they're going to somehow really get the best man by going out and like making the most money and being his boss. Okay. That's great to be ambitious. Like
no guy cares,
but no guy, exactly. No guy cares about that. They don't care about that. In fact, there's been studies that show, and again, this is not, I came from a working mother. Like I used to run businesses myself and stuff, but there's been studies that show that, marriages start to go downhill, and especially a man's self-esteem, if his wife becomes the main breadwinner. It's a natural, innate thing, right? It's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know how we got started on this topic, but this is pretty funny. Like, I remember I dated this guy, like, obviously I got married when I was 28 and a half, so I dated a lot. So did my husband. In fact, we run into people all the time. Oh, I dated him. I'm like, I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I remember him saying something to me that just made me cringe, because I remember I was working so hard to get my business going, and I'm making hardly anything, but I was working really, really hard to just get things going and working so hard. And he was kind of only working, like, he just wasn't a motivated person. He was only working a couple hours a day. And that was a big turnoff to me. And it wasn't because he didn't have money, and he didn't. I liked him for a lot of other reasons, but I remember just being like, this is so unattractive to me that I am like, you know, running on zero sleep and doing all these things to try to work hard. And I never like said that to him, but like, I remember one time he felt insecure and he had said something like, oh, well, if you care so much about, an income or something that makes you a gold digger. I'm like, no, it actually doesn't. That doesn't make me a gold digger. I want someone who, I don't care how much money they make, but I do care how hard they work.
Right. And ambition.
Yeah. And are you willing to sacrifice your own comfort to be able to provide for a family? And if not, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Because I want to have a lot of kids.
Yeah.
They cost money.
Yeah. Preach. Yeah.
I just want to be able to buy diapers. That's all you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, do you feel like, because you're obviously way more aware of the single scene right now, do you feel like guys have gotten kind of lazy, partly due to the fact that women are making things so easy for them?
Oh gosh. I think you could make that argument at times. I think, I'll tell you what, if you put side by side, like if I have a date on Monday and I have a date on Friday, and one of them makes it very easy for me and one of them makes it very difficult for me, which one am I more likely to go out with again is the one that made it easy for me. Right? And I don't mean easy as in like she puts out or I just mean like she was easy to get a hold of, and she wasn't like, oh, I'll be available in 3 to 6 months. And
I mean, those are extremes. But okay, let me give you a different scenario then. Because when I'm not endorsing like women play so hard together it becomes a complete ridiculous game and you're making him wonder whether he has any self-value at all. I'm not saying that. But if this girl is texting you and pursuing you versus this girl who's kind and responds.
Is girl A kind?
They're both equally kind.
Okay.
They're both equally kind, but this girl is the one that's pursuing and texting you.
Yeah.
And this girl is responding to you pursuing her.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, who are you going to respect more?
The one that is pursuing me.
Oh my gosh. Then you are rare.
It's because, I mean, here's the thing. Ultimately, if both of these girls are just as attractive to me, just as interesting, have all the things I want, and that's, one is texting me and she seems excited and is flirtatious, that's more attractive to me.
But what if this other girl is texting, she's flirtatious too, but you are pursuing her and she's texting you back and it's flirtatious?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. I mean, then it's not like, then there's not a huge difference between the two.
Okay.
But if she's giving me short answers and isn't flirtatious, but she's responding.
Oh, if she's giving short answers, she's not into you, right?
I mean, she might just be a horrible texter.
That's true.
Yeah. I dated a girl for almost 2 years. It was a horrendous texter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But in person, she was terrific.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a whole nother podcast, but, I mean, I see, but this immediately makes me think, and I could be wrong again. Like I'm no expert in this because I've been married. I've been out of it, but I do feel like there's been a culture shift since when I was dating where it's like men, they just want it. Well, everyone, not just men and women, they want things faster and easier and not have to work as much.
Yeah.
And I feel like you just don't respect as much though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's tough. Like, okay, so the last girl I dated, here's how things went. We met one night and we talked till like 5 a.m. Super connected, but she was very like, I'm not in a space to date. I'm not dating right now. And I'm like, whatever, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't believe her, but whatever. And so I kind of was like, okay, I'll play the friend card for a little bit, see if I can get my foot in the door. And we hung out like the next like 4 or 5 nights in a row, kind of got my foot in the door. But she was very like, we were texting a lot. She was very flirtatious, but yeah, we probably didn't kiss for like 2 weeks after I first met her. Yeah. Right. And so, so that was perfect for me. Because I could tell, even if she said she wasn't maybe super ready to date, I could tell she at least was somewhat interested in me. Totally. By the way she acted. And so to me, that's the big thing. I don't care necessarily how easy or difficult it is. Right. I care about feeling like the girl is into me.
Oh, totally. Everyone wants to feel that. Yeah.
But some girls, it's just their MO to not act like that for a while.
Yeah.
Right? Because they've been hurt, they've been burned so many times. So they're
cautious.
Yeah, they're not flirty and touchy and cutesy and stuff for like a month or two.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but it's just gonna, like, if you're comparing that to this girl that is like that quickly.
But see, I didn't see it that way. When you just described it, you just described girl B to me. You did, because you're like, then I got my foot in the door. See, you were making effort because she was kind of.
But I dated a girl, one of the loves of my life, that we kissed the first night we hung out. And I just don't think there's a formula that works and a formula that doesn't work.
Okay.
Right? I think it's more, I don't know, with the right person, I feel like your approach is way less important because it just ends up working.
But I think we can agree on the fact, right? And you tell me if I'm wrong, that having standards and self-respect is so much more intriguing to the opposite sex than not.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Like that's what I always tell girls, like, however you want to go about it. Okay, like you said, there's no formula, but have standards that you don't change, whatever those standards are to you. My personally, like, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah. Those standards are pretty obvious. But yeah, I don't even know how we got started on this subject, but it is fascinating since I'm so out of it.
Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for being here and sharing all this stuff, even though you weren't prepared to talk about any of it.
No, I talk about this stuff with my friends like all day, every day. So I'm prepared.
You're like, now I'm talking with a married woman with 6 children. It makes no sense.
No, that's great. No, I always tell people, like, before we started the podcast, you were like telling me some stuff and you're like, oh, I don't want to sound like the married person that knows everything. But for me, I'm always like, I'll take relationship, love advice from people that I see oh, they have a beautiful relationship that I admire.
Yeah.
If you don't have a relationship that I admire at all,
I don't want to hear.
you can't tell me anything. You can't tell me about marriage. You can't tell me about companionship. You can't tell me about
That's
love.
smart.
I don't want to hear it. So with that being said, will you tell me a little bit more? I know you were trying to wrap up the episode, but I'm not done. Would you tell me a little bit more about when you met your husband and how you knew that he was so different?
Yeah, I started to tell you before we were filming, but we're both from Arizona, and I just had this feeling. Actually, it was Christmas night of 2007, and my birthday's Christmas Eve. So I just turned 25, and I had this feeling I needed to pack up and leave everything and everyone and move to Utah. And I didn't really know anyone and like didn't have any job or anything, and just felt so strongly I was supposed to do that. And so moved here and happened to move right around the corner from my now husband, but people kept trying to set me up with him. And this is what I honestly think. Like this, omit all the formulas, omit all the, dynamics between humans and everything. This is where I feel the real core of how this worked out is that I was turning to God in every one of these decisions. Like, I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I'm supposed to move to Utah. In fact, if I go back and read my journal, it's like, I have no idea what's going on. Why am I moving to Utah? I don't know. Like, but I know I'm supposed to. And so that played the hugest part of it, like trying to live a life that was good so that I could receive personal revelation. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know, that first date. So at first I kept saying no. I'm like, who's this guy? Because he was so much older. He was 12
who's
years
this
older.
Old cat. Yeah.
He was 12 years older than me. And so I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going out with him. Then finally it kind of like wore me down that random people who didn't know each other were all saying, I've got to set you up with this guy named Sean Clark. So that the biggest piece of that was like, okay, that's divine intervention. Like that's undeniable, And then I went on a date with him, and I would say the rest is history, but it's not. Like we both had commitment issues, 3.5 years of dating. We both, had our issues and stuff. And I come from a divorced home, and, there's a lot of things to work out. But I will say, even on that first date, we'd gone out to eat, and then we were sitting there in a parking lot talking. And I remember feeling very strongly, this is different. And it felt reverent. And it felt sacred. And it felt like something that I should not mess up.
Yeah.
And there was a difference. It wasn't just like, oh, she's hot, or oh, he has money, or you know what I mean? Like there was no shallow aspect to it. It was like, this is pure and good, and it felt good. And then since it was such a good thing, there was a lot that worked against it. And I'm not saying if you're in some relationship that just isn't working out, you should just fight through and do it, because that might not be the right thing. But like for us, it was like, this is good. And so one last thing I'll share. So my husband knows all about this. My dad did not like my husband at the time. Like when we were dating, he didn't like him.
Just because he was a salty old dog?
No. My dad's like the friendliest, bubbliest person.
No, I mean your husband just being older.
No, he didn't care about that either.
Okay,
Isn't that weird? He didn't even care. In fact, I had problems, and my dad's like, so what? You never know when you're going to die. You could die before he does.
Yeah.
Like he didn't care at all. But like he did, he thought he was kind of arrogant. He just didn't know him very well, Because my husband is truly just the best human, and I just adore everything about him. But anyway, we had broken up one of the times, or a few times. We had broken up, and I was like, I don't know if I should move back to Arizona. I'm thinking maybe I might move to California. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just had no clue. And I was visiting in Arizona, and my dad said, let me give you a priesthood blessing. And in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we believe men have the priesthood, which is the power of God on earth. And he gave me a blessing. You know about that. I'm not explaining to you.
Yeah.
But he gave me a blessing. And this is how I know this is from God. And this is such a personal thing. I've actually can't believe I'm sharing this on a public thing. But anyway, he gave me this blessing, and he was like, God wants you to give, I don't remember exact words, but God wants you to give Sean another try. And we had been broken up for a few months at this point. Like I was already moving on. I was kind of doing my own thing. I wasn't even thinking about that.
Dang, I wish somebody would give my exes a blessing.
Who knows? It's not too late. You never know.
I'm getting the shaft. Okay, go ahead.
And then we both sat there. I'll never forget. We sat there without saying a word at the end of that blessing. And I looked over at my dad, and he goes, those were not my words. He's like, those were not my words.
Yeah.
And ironically now, my dad adores Sean, my husband, and Sean adores my dad. They are like best friends. And my dad is kind of embarrassed almost that he didn't like Sean at first. 'Cause he just didn't know him, you know?
Right.
And so to me, the biggest thing, and we have this incredible marriage. I mean, no marriage is perfect. You know, obviously have things we just get annoyed with each other. But for the most part, we have a very, very, very good marriage. And the thing that made it work both in dating and finally getting married and in marriage that has kept it a very good marriage is putting God first.
Yeah.
So I don't know how any marriage would make it without that.
Yeah.
That's the only advice I could ever give.
Yeah.
Putting God first individually and as a couple.
Right. Because then you have, I don't know, you just have something, I like that word you used earlier, sacred. You have something sacred you're both moving towards at the same time.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, what's your big reason? What's your big goal as a family? Is it to have a nicer house? Is it to make sure all your kids get into Ivy League schools? What's your big purpose? And I'm not saying you can't have it without God.
Don't let that be your focus, right?
Yeah, I just think I just think it's easier with God personally.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
You're so awesome. I'm
Thank
glad
you.
we could finally meet up.
Yeah, this was awesome. I love what you're doing.
Thank you. You too.
Love your energy and curiosity. It's all great.
You're like your nosiness, you know?
I love nosiness, yeah. Hey, if you don't like nosiness, don't be on a podcast.
I know. Thank you so much again.
Yeah, of course.